I worked 12 seasons in North Cascade Wilderness Reserve, long enough to know when the forest isn't behaving the way a forest should. October brings a sharp cold that carries sound farther and clearer than usual. Elk bugles stretch across valleys like sirens, branches creak like doors, and visitors mistake every noise for danger. That night at Lake Merrow, I learned the difference between normal echoes and something else entirely. Dispatch called at 9:13 p.m. Long cry near Willow Bend Campground. Possible injured wildlife. The tension in the caller's voice told me this wasn't a routine animal call. When I arrived, a family of 3 stood near the information board, pale and rattled. The father kept scanning the lake. The mother said the cry sounded like someone calling, rising into a sharp pitch and holding too long without a single breath. The teenage son stared at the ground and whispered, "Something was in the water." I told them to stay near their car and walk the trail toward Lake Merrow. The forest ahead felt unnaturally still. No frogs, no insects, no wind against the reeds. Lake Merrow lay flat under a low band of fog. My flashlight cut across the surface until something pale caught the beam near the shallows. A bull elk lay half submerged, its massive body motionless. The antlers were bent backward toward its spine, as if forced by deliberate pressure. No predator does that. No broken brush, no paw prints, no drag marks. Only a perfectly churned circle of mud where something had happened without leaving evidence. As I marked the coordinates, a thin metallic tone drifted across the lake. Long, sharp, steady, unnatural. It vibrated through the pier boards into my boots and tightened every muscle in my back. It didn't sound like an animal. It didn't sound human either. It cut off instantly, leaving a silence heavy enough to feel. Wildlife staff arrived next morning. They didn't study much before writing "trauma from rut combat." Then they left. But the tone stayed in my head like a bruise. 2 nights later, dispatch called again. Strange cry between Merrow Lake and Birch Inlet. Same area, same sound. A lone backpacker waited at the trailhead, shaking. He said it sounded like someone drowning but somehow still screaming. I walked down the shoreline again. Halfway, I saw massive circular ripples spreading outward. Something large had just submerged. Near the reeds lay an overturned kayak, paddle missing. SAR divers arrived at dawn. At 6:42 a.m., they recovered the kayaker. No wounds, no struggle, no signs of attack. He was found kneeling on the lake bottom, head tilted upward as if staring at something rising from the dark. Cause of death: cardiac arrest from stress. But people don't arrange themselves kneeling underwater unless something made them. And whatever he saw below had frozen terror into his last expression. That's when I went to the archives. Old logs described humming beneath boats from the 1950s. A girl missing after hearing her name from the lake in the 70s. A choir-like tone in the 90s. Every report included the same line. Sound not consistent with wildlife. That's when I found the old pre-dam map. Lake Merrow had once been a valley. A town called Graybridge lay beneath. Homes, streets, and a church with a bell tower now drowned under 50 feet of water. A bell capable of resonance strong enough to travel through water. The pieces clicked. The tone wasn't a creature. It wasn't wind. It was the drowned town itself producing a long, thin resonance that reached anything alive. It had been calling for decades, and now I knew it had noticed me too. I returned to Lake Merrow the night after reading the archive logs. I didn't tell dispatch. I didn't tell anyone. I needed to know if the sound was coming from animals, wind, or something under the lake that had been calling people for decades. The trail was colder than usual, the kind of cold that moves through layers instead of sitting on top of them. The lake appeared through the trees as a wide black mirror with fog crawling low like it was searching for a direction. I stepped onto the old wooden pier, the boards soft from years of moisture. The forest behind me went silent, as if something pressed a hand over its mouth. At first, nothing happened. No sound, no movement. The water was too still for a place that usually breathed with ripples. Then the pier vibrated slightly, a low hum rising through the wood into my legs. The air tightened in my ears. The tone started, a thin, unwavering frequency that sharpened with every second until it felt like it was drilling into bone. My flashlight flickered once, steadied, then flickered again. The fog parted just enough to show faint shapes below the surface. Not creatures, not shadows, structures. Tilted rooftops, broken foundations. A leaning bell tower swallowed by darkness. The drowned remains of Greybridge. The tone grew sharper, and the water beneath the pier bulged upward, as if something massive was rising directly below me. The boards groaned. The tone reached a pitch that made my teeth ache, then snapped off instantly. Silence dropped like a weight. The fog closed again, as if nothing existed beneath it. I backed off the pier without turning around, sensing that whatever was rising did not want an audience. The moment my boots hit solid ground, the forest noises returned faintly, as if waking from a long breath. I didn't stay. I walked the entire trail back with my flashlight locked on the path, refusing to look at the lake again. At sunrise, I filed the only report that would shut the area down without raising questions. Possible microseismic resonance. Shoreline unstable. Recommend immediate closure. No one questioned it. Geological language makes everyone step back. Signs went up the next afternoon. Unstable area, no entry. People assumed landslide danger. Good. They didn't need to know what truly lay under that still water. The park closed the lakeshore, but I could still hear the tone from the station during late October nights. Some nights it was faint, barely brushing the tree line. Other nights it was sharp and metallic, vibrating against the windows like something knocking from underwater. I learned to ignore it, not to acknowledge it. Sound feeds attention. 2 weeks after the closure, a local fisherman ignored the signs and went out at dawn. His boat was found drifting near the far end of the lake with the motor off. He wasn't inside. We searched the shoreline but found nothing except the same wide circular ripples spreading from the lake's center. There were no tracks, no signs of struggle, only water returning to stillness. I knew what happened, but I couldn't put it on paper. The lake had called again, and he had answered. The drowned town did not want to be forgotten. Whatever resonance moved through its submerged streets sought out anything living near the water. Since that night on the pier, I haven't stepped near Lake Merrow. Every October, the tone returns, sometimes low and distant, sometimes thin and sharp enough to pierce through wind. Whenever it reaches the station, I stand still and listen. Not because I want to, but because something in that sound demands acknowledgement. The truth is simple. The lake doesn't echo. It remembers. And whatever memory was buried beneath that water still waits for someone to step close enough to hear its call. I survived because I stepped away. Not everyone does. I keep the shoreline closed. I check the signs myself. And every time the tone rises through the cold night air, I remind myself why I never walk close to the water anymore. Some places don't want to stay quiet. Some places don't want to stay drowned. Lake Merrow is one of them.